Welcome, Esther. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sally, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So you're doing something very interesting. You're involved in what is called positive homes. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey getting to being involved in that and what exactly does the sustainable positive homes entail?
Okay, that's two questions. I'm going to
It is
start.
two. It is two.
So I'm going to start with the origin one. So why
Okay.
sustainability in my life? I was born in Barcelona. My dad was a baker, and also he was a skiing instructor. So every weekend we would go to the mountains, and I got from my family to appreciate nature and to do active sports outdoors. So I guess that starts from there. And then also when I was 16, I was in Canada for a school year. And I was very amazed about the nature and the people. And when I came back after studies and I tried to work as an architect for other architects, doing competitions, awards, celebrity architecture. That's before the crisis. And then when the crisis struck, and it struck very strongly in Spain, I kind of went back to study again. And I thought, yeah, let's make, sustainable homes. Let's specialize on sustainability. So I went back to study, and that's why we now are offering our services for positive homes. And that brings to the second question, which is what's a positive home? And a positive home, it's a home that takes care of you and for very few energy. So it saves energy, it saves water, and it takes care of you because it offers in the interior high oxygen levels, very close to a forest. So that we have the oxygen levels that we have in the forest. So that's explained, Sally, very shortly and a way that everyone can understand. But of course, there's a lot of technicalities behind that.
Oh yes, I'm sure there's a lot of things that come into play and to think about that. So my first kind of question with that then is, are you able to build these sustainable homes within kind of the city limits or the kind of the greater city limit area? So we'll just use Barcelona as an example,
Sure.
as you're from there and I've been living there. If I wanted to move to Spain and have a home built, can I do it in Barcelona or close to Barcelona?
Yes, yes, indeed. I mean, if you move to Spain, we can take care, or even, France or Portugal or Mallorca. Well, it's Spain, Mallorca, but it's an island.
Mm.
So we can take care of the design, sustainable design worldwide, even if it's a full renovation or if it's a new house. But if it's a new house, we can deliver the full process from the design to asking the permits to delivering the construction on budget. We do that better in Catalonia and Mallorca. And then we have partners in the rest of Spain and we have partner in Portugal. But we can deliver with guarantee the full process of new buildings in all Catalonia and Mallorca. And then when we are saying sustainable renovations, positive home renovations, we need to stick to the city limits of Barcelona because our team is in Barcelona. And then maybe, we can reach some towns that are close by, like we call it the metropolitan area. But it's
Mm,
really a case by case in the case of renovations, because it needs to be a
right.
full renovation to move all the team from one place to the other. Mhm.
Right. And that's good to know, with that. So, I mean, obviously you can design and build probably from small to extremely large and extravagant homes. What is kind of the average or the most popular that
Mhm.
people are looking at when they are building and wanting a sustainable home?
That's a great question because my clients are mostly expats that come to Spain or Catalonia. So it really varies in cultures. So the Europeans are tending more of 150 square meters houses or up to 200 square meters houses, which are, not super big for American standards. And then like we've just finished two houses. We have the photo shoot this Friday. For Americans, American couple, and this is almost like 300, a little bit something more.
Wow.
So that's still small for American standards, but they have the American size kitchen, the
Mm,
king size beds. So we kind of have specialized in designing American size for the Spanish standards, regulations. And in Catalonia, there's also a lot of urban regulations like that they tell you even what color the facade needs to be sometimes. So we kind of merge this. Mhm.
mhm. And that's really important to know and to think about for anybody who's considering building or purchasing and renovating, that there are a lot of regulations that take place. I mean, even in North America, when we think about it, the different certain regions, your lawn has to be so much of the property, or your house can only be so big within the lot size. And so just as we have a lot of regulations in North America, Spain is the same, and Spain also has a lot of regulations. I'm not going to get into
Yes.
saying who has more because I don't know, and I think it depends on what state or region or area or whatever you are in. But there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of regulations that need to be followed. So working with you is great because not only are they getting that sustainable home, but you're from Barcelona. You know the regulations of Spain, or your team knows if somebody, as you said, is going to France or to Portugal.
Sure, sure. And it needs to be a local here because even here in Barcelona, you know that as well as me, the regulations are written in Catalan only, not even Spanish. So you really need a local architect to go through that, and then to go to the city hall and ask for all these specifications if they have any questions. Yes, indeed. Mhm.
And do you have like an average price per square meter of what it costs to build?
I do have a price for that, and that includes the whole package. So
Okay.
that means not only the construction cost, but also all the technicians implied, all the taxes implied. That here for renovations are 21%. For new build, it can be 10% for the materials and labor, but then 21% on all the technicians. And you need a topographer, a geographer, an architect, a quality surveyor. Well, all that big number, euro square meter price, it's 2,700 euros square meter. That's the
Okay.
price that can cover the whole thing for a positive home. Understanding that positive homes have this German quality stamp of sustainability that's called the passive house.
Mm, and that's a pretty reasonable price considering it's everything included.
Mhm.
And so people are gonna know the final price, and not just, oh, well, that's this plus 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 plus, because
I
that
can
that
see
can
you have a
happen
lot of
sometimes too.
experience in Spain.
Oh, this is the price. Oh, but oh, plus this, plus this, plus this. But then also with these homes that are being built, people are saving money in the long term of the heating, the water, the electricity, all of those types of things. Those bills will be substantially less than some of those places, especially in
Exactly.
in the cities. And I mean, I love the places in the cities, but they weren't built with a lot of, like, even insulation. They weren't built with, when they
Exactly.
installed the windows, they were just having glass windows. They're not great windows to keep the heat out, to keep the sound out, and that's just a common thing because when we look at buildings that are hundreds of years old, and in some cases over 1,000 years old, like great, they now
Yeah.
have electricity and windows. That's a plus, but a lot of them don't have heat or air conditioners unless they get them installed and they're single room. But it's still. I remember when I first moved there, and I was just renting a room
Mhm.
because I needed to get to know the city more, and I just thought, "I'll just
Of course.
Airbnb a
Yeah.
room to figure things out." I was just so excited to be moving there, and in the first winter, I was like I was cold, and I thought, "This is Spain, I'm not supposed to be cold," and I realized it was colder inside than it was outside, so I would get up cold,
Yeah.
have a hot shower to warm myself up, get ready, and then I would bundle up, and as soon as I'd walk outside, I'd be like, "Oh, I can take my scarf off." It's not as it's not it didn't feel so cold because inside, just the way that the buildings were built and the materials used so long ago,
Yes.
it's they're not, they're not like homes that, say, North Americans or probably even people in Germany and Norway and the UK, where homes are really designed to be warm. They're
Exactly.
really not warm for those few winter months.
Yes, yes. I mean, and this conversation, it's a conversation I only have with expats because the locals are so used to not having heating or having a poor heating and zero insulation that they don't even complain about it. But when somebody comes from outside, they kind of have this sense of this doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't. Actually, you said buildings don't have insulation. In all Spain, we can say that all buildings built before 1980s, for sure, zero insulation, for sure. And almost 70% of all buildings in Spain were built before. So,
Yes.
yeah, I can imagine how cold you were in that apartment and freezing coming out of the shower, even you were in Spain. Yeah, I've heard that before. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because it comes back to what I always say with everything, and you don't realize it until you live abroad or spend a lot of time in different countries, is it's everything is perspective. Like,
Yeah,
everything is perspective. So, as you say, the local people, the Spanish people, Catalan, they're used to it. They grew up, and so they know, oh, the winter months, yeah, it gets a little bit colder. You wear a jacket inside. And for me, it's you don't wear a jacket inside. Jackets are to keep you warm outside. You're supposed to be warm inside. And neither one of those are right, and neither one of them wrong. It's just our perspective of our
sure,
experience.
sure, sure. But as the world gets global, we tend to
Mm,
get the best of every culture, which is great. So
mm,
and actually, European Union is forcing us in all Spain to, get the buildings updated, get them insulated, get them better windows, like you said, not single windows, like maybe double glazing windows, and then better systems for heat
mm,
our homes, because actually 40% of the global warming, it's due to heating our homes. So that's like a huge amount. It's almost half of it. So we need to improve it with better systems. So now there's some subsidies from European Union that you can, use in Spain, in France, in Portugal, in Italy. Like all of them have their regulations of how to apply them. But now
mhm.
there's an opportunity in these countries in Europe to have a better home.
Right. And with those subsidies, are those are just for kind of like for all homes, so it doesn't matter if it's an expat wanting to build or it's only for homes over a certain age that want to, let's say, have new windows put in.
Well, I do know the specificalities of Spain and Catalonia, no, in
Okay.
Catalonia.
Mhm.
So I cannot say about France. I know in France they are more efficient. Like here in Spain, they are very complex. And what I can tell you, like without getting into much detail, is
Mhm.
that everyone can apply them. I mean, if you are a citizen, you can apply for them. You just need to follow the procedure. And of course, European Union wants this to have a higher impact on the housing buildings. So they are giving you more money if you do that with your neighbors in a collective housing building. So you need to do that with your neighbors. And
Mm.
that also works like that in Greece because we have a collaborator there. And so, yeah, they are putting more money into that if you do it together with your neighbors, which of course it's complicated here. And if you have a single family house, you can get some money, but not too much money. We're talking about 3,000 euros for, a massive improvement and massive investment. So, and there's a lot of paperwork. So I would recommend, if somebody is interested in those subsidies, to do that in collective house buildings. If there's few neighbors and you have a very good relationship with them.
Right, right. Well, it does make sense because the energy savings in a apartment building, is gonna be a lot more than just a single family home. So it makes sense that they really
Mm.
are trying to get people to collectively, come together and do that. I can understand the challenges of depending upon relationships with the neighbors, depending upon financial means of other people in the building, that it can become, a bit more of a challenge that way.
It is, Sally, you got it. I mean, it's a huge challenge. Like there's this there's these subsidies with a lot of money to help people, and nobody is taking that. Nobody's taking them because you need to pay everything up front in Spain and then get it back. So that means that you need to get a special loan with all your neighbors, and that's pretty scary. We do have some collaborators that go to the neighborhood meetings, these meetings with all the neighbors on the building, and they kind of explain how it works, what they need to do. So, I mean, if anybody is interested in that, it's better to get an expert to come to the neighbors meeting, and then explain that because it's very complex and you need an expert to explain this. Hmm.
Right, and I think too, there could be part of it that there's just, in some cases, a lack of awareness, right? Like,
Sure.
how um is the country promoting it? Like, are people all aware of these things that are available and to explain if there's a way that you can pay X amount up front and you own your unit, it will take roughly on average X amount of time to save that money, like to kind of repay yourself because you're not paying out more in those utilities and bills, and have it explained in a way that way because there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that would just think, I don't have the money, which some won't, or why would I spend that much money thinking that it's an expense and not that in the long term that it's actually going to be saving more and you're gonna be more comfortable in your home, like the temperature, it's whether it's hot or cold outside, and we're seeing those
Sure.
temperatures change fair amount. Some places are definitely getting a lot hotter in the summertime, and some are getting quite a bit colder in the winter, and so helping regulate that without an additional expense every single month, does add
Yes.
up over time.
Yeah. Yeah. You explain it very well, Sally. And also, it's a matter of having a healthy home where you are not breathing mold, or where you
Uh,
are, breathing a renovated air, and where you have a comfortable home. And that's also going to be very soon, in 9 years from now, we are going to be forced in Europe to have these improvements. So now there are subsidies, but I am assuming, and I don't know for sure, Sally, that in the future there won't be because you have been constantly saying citizens to take these subsidies. We are going to help you now, but in 9 years' times, you're going to be obliged to do that.
yeah, subsidies don't last forever. We the government either a few things can always happen. Either the government themselves change and it's a different party that's in power and they make changes. We see
That's
that
true.
happen.
Hmm.
Or as you said, we've been giving subsidies for X amount of years, whether they give it for 5 years or in 9 years' time when they say, okay, this no, you've had 9 years. We were willing to help and to do this, and you didn't. Well, now you have to, and now it's all on your expense, and you're not going to get any because you haven't done it when we were willing to help. Well, now you have to do it, so we're not going to help.
Yes, yes, that sounds pretty understandable from
Mhm.
a logic perspective.
Right. And so do you know like what types of things are going to be in that time that are going to be mandatory that people are going to be having to change with kind of say the average pre-1980s because that's most if the homes if we look at the pre-1980s built what changes are going to be mandatory for the new homes or
Oh,
and to renovate.
well, European Union is say it's just designing the framework
Mhm.
the framework. So the framework is in 2033, homes have this energy value, like, our
Mhm.
washing machines in Europe, that they have this sticker and they are saying
Mhm.
this is efficiency A is the most efficient, A, B, C, and G is the worst efficiency for your washing machine. So now homes and buildings have these also an energy efficiency value. And and what the European Union is saying is that in 2033, if you want to sell or rent your home, you need an energy value of a D, D as in
Oh.
Denmark. So
Mhm.
if you don't comply with the D and you want to rent your home or sell it, then I'm assuming that you will need to make some improvements at home. So it really depends on your type of home, if it's a single family home, if it's an apartment in first floor of a tall building where you don't have any sun. So there's like every context has their own solutions, and we need to use simulations of case by case to say what are the improvements. However, we have seen a lot of examples, and we can say, like, for the in Barcelona city. I'm putting Barcelona as an example because I know how it works. The buildings, what type of windows, what type of heating system. So in an apartment in Barcelona, you will need to get rid of gas for sure, and that means changing your heat tank, which is usually attached to your heating system,
Mhm.
for a more efficient system. And you will also need to insulate your facade. And this can be done from the cavity wall that you have on the facade. Sorry, I'm getting a bit technical, Sally,
No,
here.
no, it's okay. It's because then people, I think it's important because if people right now are looking to potentially buy, whether they're buying now or they're saying, I'm on a
Yes.
plan that I'm going to move in 5 years, I'm waiting for
Yeah.
my kids to get out of school or whatever it is, or, that they're doing this plan, then it's something that they need to consider and to put it either into their cost of if I buy, I know I'm going to have to do these renovations. Either I do it now or knowing that that's going to change. That some people are buying now and still maybe just using it as vacation property until they move. But knowing these things that they can think about when
Yes.
looking at property or even to rent, to be like, am I allowed to be renting in the future, or what things am I gonna be having to do if I'm gonna be renting my place? People need to know these expenses, and we say, "Okay, sure, it's 9 years from now," which some people are like, "Oh, that's so long away," but it's still gonna be an expense that you're gonna have to look into if you're buying a pre-built 1980s place, which is, as we said, is at least 70%
Yes.
of places there. So whether they're doing it for investment purposes or to live themselves, they're going to have to make the changes. So it's good for them to know some of those details of things that they're going to have to consider because when they talk to realtor or a person to go in and say, okay, well, this is the asking price. Well, I know I'm going to have to change this. I know I'm going to have to do this. I
Yeah.
know there's going to be expense of this. They're like, oh, this person knows their stuff. And I always say we can only make a an adequate decision for like I can only make a good decision for me when I know all the facts. If I know all the
Exactly.
facts and I know that I'm going to spend X amount of dollars more, I make that decision knowing the facts. But if I spend money and then I don't know the facts, I
Mm.
didn't make maybe I would have still made the decision, but I didn't make the best decision without all the facts.
Totally, Sally. And especially for people from your community, that they have been traveling around maybe a few years and they want to settle and they are thinking about settling in Spain and they might be, it really
Mm,
designs their future investment of maybe I'm renting, maybe I'm not, and
mhm.
these can change massively their retiring strategy. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. So if it's an apartment, so we know that the heating system's gonna have to be upgraded if,
Yes.
to a certain thing, and then, like, the outside facade area, and of course, depending upon your building, your unit area, that's gonna be at least 1 or 2 walls of insulation that's gonna have to
Yes.
be put in.
Yes, yes, exactly. And also the third one that probably most apartments in Barcelona need to change is change all their windows because you've been
Mhm,
living here, most of them are made in wood, the original ones with single glass. So this needs to
mm,
change, and also the blind boxes are
mhm,
also a open window, open hole to the exterior. So this needs to be
yeah,
insulated as well. So with these three improvements, you will probably in a Barcelona apartment reach the energy certificate of D as in Denmark. But if you want to go through in detail of a single family house that has own roof, four facades, and probably built, in the coastal area, which were originally built as secondary homes. So the construction quality was lower. So you really need to make a simulation of how it works, what's the energy value for that, and what's the energy value of your renovation. And if you are investing your money in a single family house, you need to make sure that it reaches the energy efficiency value. And it's also a matter of money, Sally, because these houses can be spending like 400 euros a month in winter, and people don't know that. I don't know if you have any example or any experience with that here.
Well, most recently, a friend of mine in Barcelona had I would call it a newer apartment. I don't know when it was built. I would say post 1980s though. Like
Okay.
it wasn't that old. And I mean, it was nice. It was 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, but not big. I don't know by square meters, but definitely a tiny kitchen and a small living room area. Like it was
Okay.
not big at all. And she was paying hers was just over 200 euro
A month.
and a month, and
Wow.
she says, like,
Wow.
she doesn't, like, turn on the AC much unless she really needs to, and it's super hot. She doesn't turn on the heating, much because generally within her building, the building's fairly warm because it's not an older building.
Yeah.
Um, and I think of mine even before that, where I lived right above a grocery store, so I never had the heat on, rarely even turned the AC on because I was just really lucky with my billing, and still, even then, and it was a while ago, and it was still quite expensive for nothing,
Yeah.
for basically for not using it, it was still a lot, and so I can see how it's unfortunately hundreds of euros per month, and so when we look at that if somebody's paying 400 euro or 300 euro for even 200 euro for her apartment, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, that's crazy
Yeah.
for that much. Cause I know that it'd be one thing if she had AC running all day, heat running all day in the winter, like, then it would be like, "Okay, you've got stuff going all day long." then maybe a bit more. But um, it has been the last few years where the increase in electricity in Europe
Yeah.
is, I think, more than doubled
Hmm.
in the last
To
few
be.
years, and I don't think people coming from North America really realize it and realize what those utilities could be, because we listen so much about, "Oh, it's so cheap to live here and housing costs this or the food is that." And I mean, again, depending upon where you're coming from,
Mhm.
absolutely, from some places it is cheaper, other places it's not, but then what it was to what it is now
Yeah.
has gone up, and if wages, whatever you're doing, whether you work for yourself or you have a job, wages generally haven't been going up with the cost of
Of course.
electricity and heat
Mm.
and things like that just alone, and so it is important with having the technology and the ability to get these things done. We do need to look a little bit more long term. Of course, it's an
Sure.
expense, right? And you're not gonna make your money back in 2 months, but if you're paying €300 a month in utilities and you can dramatically reduce that, if you can cut it in
Yeah.
half, then you just gotta do the math as to how long is it taking to pay this, and then from that point, you're saving a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree with you. And actually, Sally, we have created a calculator. We call it calculator positive home calculator, and answering some questions about your apartment or your single family house here in Catalonia. We you get in your email inbox a calculation of how much money you can save, but also what are the improvements you need to do, and an estimate of your cost to apply a single one of them in a link in order to help you understand what does mean insulating your cavity wall and how you can do it and approximate price so you can do your estimations yourself. And we have done this because of course we are architects and builders, so we need to do new construction or full renovations, but there's a lot of
Mm.
people that are asking for how can I do my um, upgrades at home without doing a full renovation. So we have created this calculator to help everybody, even though we as architects cannot help them directly. So this is working pretty well, and it gives you a first step of getting to know where to go, how to do it, without hiring an architect that's expert on sustainability.
And that's really great to be offering people that, to help them, because, there are some that just, as it comes back again, as we said, affordability, if they can't afford an architect, but want to do this, want to take advantage of those rebates now, knowing that they're going to have to do it eventually, and they can kind of price it out and say, "Okay, well, maybe this year we do the wall insulation and get that done. We know what it's gonna cost." And if they can't get the whole building on board, then, maybe in 2 years they can change out their windows and know roughly
Exactly.
what it's gonna cost. Of course, the price might go up a bit in a couple of years, but it's a way to budget and stage those things to do on their own if they're
Mhm.
not in a position, which I'm sure a good majority of people aren't in the position to just say, "Okay, let's come in and do a reno and redo it all," and either, like, we'll have to move somewhere else while the reno's being done, which brings in another potential issue of,
Mhm.
especially because of lack of housing and things, and for a short term, for a reno, so it's also another consideration as to then where do they go, or, I mean, ideally, if they have, vacation time or plan on vacation, to maybe have
Yes.
things done when they're away, but just to figure out this plan, uh,
Mhm.
because for some homes, it's gonna be a lot of work, and you're not gonna be wanting to, if you don't have to, you're probably not gonna be wanting to live in it
Yeah.
while these things are being done. Like, window changes, okay, no problem, but, insulating walls and things like that. You're gonna have to move all your furniture, the dust, the
Yes,
all of
yes.
that.
Exactly, Sally. Like we've done that to help people that don't want this, a massive renovation. So they have a route map in the end, so they
Yeah.
can apply on their own terms, like you were saying. And basically, because our clients are people that are buying, actually we help them with this search. So when they are buying a home, a family home, so we make that study and we tell them, okay, this is what the renovation is going to cost, and it's going to be sustainable, and it's going to have an energy efficiency value of an A. But of course, they are buying, they are living somewhere else before that, or
Mm,
so they have a plan of, okay, so instead of moving at that time, I will move after I'm buying 4 months, 6 months later on, which is what a
right,
renovation here takes. Well, depending how many things you do, but so yeah,
right.
that scenario. So it's harder when you are living in an apartment and you don't have anywhere else to go and you are already investing money.
Mm,
Mhm.
mhm. Well, I mean, it's a lot of things for people to think about, but and
Yes.
it's the good thing is there's time right now, but years go by quickly. Everybody, we know that the older we get, the faster time seems to go by. So if you are considering buying, in the process of buying, to be aware that these requirements are going to happen. So it's nice to take advantage of it for now to get some of those rebates and things back if you can. And for those who are listening and considering of moving in the future, something to consider, whatever your kind of long-term strategy or plan is. So if people wanted to know more, they wanted to talk with you because their plan is in the next year to move or to buy, and they want to make sure that, for me, if I recommend, get this stuff done sooner than later, or, buy a house if that's what you're looking at, and you can wait a bit longer, get those things done now instead of waiting 5 to 7 years, because I have a feeling what will happen is a lot of people will wait, and then there's gonna be that last
Sure.
minute rush and crunch, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden it's like, we don't have people to do the work because we're busy on other
Mhm.
jobs, and then therefore the price to get those things done
Right.
is gonna go up because there's gonna be thousands of places that need to be done, and people are running out of time. And so
Sure.
therefore, supply and demand, price will increase just because over time price increases, and then if they're really pushing like this stuff has to be done or you can't rent, you can't sell, then the price would probably increase again for those reasons alone. So how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way if they're looking to move or to get that calculator, and to just get some more information about these new rules that are going to be coming into effect, and
Yeah.
even for people who, we know we're talking about Catalonia specifically within
Yeah.
Spain, but to give, other people, if you're listening and watching, even if you're
Sure.
not specifically interested in Spain, these rules are going to be throughout the EU. They will vary slightly, but that will help you to at least get a bit of knowledge on these rules. And then, depending upon where you choose to finally move to, whether it's Portugal or France, or other places, for you to know that these will take place throughout all of EU. So, no matter where that you're moving to, they're coming into effect, but just the specifics of them will vary slightly.
Yeah, sure, sure. So if people want to get to know more about this,
Mm.
we do have a blog that is in English explaining all those. We have 5,000 visits a month, so they can subscribe to it, or they can, just go and check the blog. Also, we have an Instagram, which is giving you like very small peels of everything that we have talked today in English about Spain. And then in the bio of our Instagram, you have the calculator. It's also in 3 languages. So I don't know if you want me to share my Instagram here.
You can for maybe those that are listening, but we'll also have links in the show notes for people to easily click on. But for yeah, for people
Okay.
that are listening, maybe just you can share it now and they can remember it or write it down.
Okay, then I will just say it very fast. Like our Instagram, it's era.arch. Sorry about that. It's era.archie, which is era architects. Anyways,
Okay.
they can find a lot of information there. Of course, if they are ready to go and we can help them finding home to buy and renovate, they can just send us an email. But I will just leave it to you so you can share whatever you think it can help better your community.
Absolutely. Well, we'll make sure to keep to put those links in the show notes to make it for easy for people to just click on the link and connect with you.
Right?
It's very very important information because these new rules can cost people a lot of money if they're unaware of it, especially if buying a single family home or,
Yeah,
um, and just with the utilities and things. So in a way, it can cost them a lot of money, but then the long term will save them money in the future. So it's just really good for people to be aware that this is on the horizon and will be coming into effect throughout Europe.
sure, sure. I'm happy you find this interesting, Sally.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Sure. My pleasure. It's been great. I had a lot of fun.